Hello everyone, thanks for checking out today's video. Welcome to my channel, Jersey Shore Pondscapes Videos. My name is Chris. I have a ton of videos here on this channel for you. I've been building koi ponds now for over 25 years, so I am trying to share with you as much knowledge and experience as I can to help you understand, maintain, build, and hopefully enjoy your own ponds at home. So I have put together over 100 videos here so far for you guys. I have videos on just about every topic you can think of. When it comes to building ponds, everything from, how to do PVC pipe work and how to use cement, how to build a waterfall or a stream, different accessories to add to your ponds. I have a whole series of videos on filtration and UV lights and aeration, as well as aquatic plants, all different types of aquatic plants for your pond. And of course we have videos talking about your fish and how to feed your fish and, maintain your pond throughout each season. So for some very cool stuff here, and I'm going to continue to keep pumping out as many videos for you guys as I can, so hopefully you'll find something that'll help you out and answer some questions for you. So yeah, all right, today's video we are talking about herons, great blue herons, large white egrets, and other birds like this that can come to your pond and have a free lunch. So unfortunately these birds are quite common and they can do a lot of damage to your pond. They are very smart and they are very patient. So we really need to understand what we're dealing with here when it comes to deterring them. They will watch you, know when you're out by your pond and know when you're not. They will show up bright and early in the morning, right as the sun rises. Before you wake up, he'll be out there having breakfast. They know when you go to work, and they'll sit on a roof or a tree or something nearby, and when they see you outside, they'll sit there and sit there and sit there, and as soon as you go inside, here he comes. All right, they're very patient and they can stand in your pond or next to your pond for an hour and just sit and watch those fish totally motionless until one little fish just swims right by him and bam, 2 seconds and he's going down the throat. All right. Now, herons mostly are looking for smaller fish, right? Goldfish are big prey, small koi, all right? Something 3, 4, 5 inches, no problem, all right? They will wipe your pond out. And once they find your pond, like I said, they're really smart. Once they find your pond and they know they've got food there, they'll be back and back and back again and again and again until there's nothing left, all right? So now, while they only eat smaller fish, okay, unfortunately they can also do damage to larger fish. Now typically I have many clients with some large koi, right, that are 10, 12, 14, 16 inches bigger, whatever. The herons are not a problem here. I have never really encountered an issue with that. The issue becomes when you have large koi but then you have a bunch of little fish swimming around with them. Okay, so the heron knows he can't swallow and eat that, big 20-inch koi, but he's going to try to get the little fish that are around him. And when he goes and stabs at those little fish to grab them, sometimes he'll inadvertently hit the big ones. And they can really, their beaks are pointed and really sharp. And they're like a spear right into the side of your big koi, all right? Or into their back or wherever, if they're in the way, all right? So they can injure your large koi like that. Now, the other thing that happens is sometimes if you have fish that are 6, 8 inches, something like that, they may try to eat them. Once they try to eat them, if they're too big for them to swallow, they'll just drop it. And unfortunately, half the time they leave it on your patio or they'll leave it in your grass to die. All right, so they eat small fish, right? They can remove and kill medium-sized fish, and larger fish they can injure by, inadvertently spearing them. All right, so again, as I said, most of my clients that have large koi, big koi, and no little fish, really, I don't have a problem. Some of my clients still say, I want a net over my pond. Keep a net over the pond. I don't want the heron to eat my fish. I'm like, well, he's not going to eat a fish that's this big. All right. But it's protective, right? Okay. Now, another issue that I want you to be aware of with these herons that's quite common, all right, unfortunately. As I said, that beak is really pointed and really sharp. All right, and he's a big bird, so he can, stick his head, 1.5 feet underwater to go get your fish. Sometimes in getting the fish, that beak hits your pond liner and can put a hole in your pond liner. Now you've got a leak. All right, so be aware of that as well. I do have a client that, unfortunately, he's not home very much during the day at all. And, his pond is basically a feeding ground for a heron. And I have a ton of holes in that pond. I've probably put 20 or 30 patches in that pond. Unfortunately, the bird just sits there and a fish come around and sometimes he's hitting that liner. And it's just basically because there's no control. There's no deterring this bird from coming there. The pond is very large, so it's actually about 70 by 40. So there's no, putting a net over it very easily that can, you can put it on, you can take it off. Like it's a process, right? It's going to be a chore. And, it's just that there's nobody home to deter him. So, some ways to keep these birds from eating all your fish, all right, is basically, as I've said, a net. Now, I do have another video on this channel about the different types of netting for your pond, and you might want to check that out because I show pictures and examples of different kinds. But basically, if you have these birds are around a lot in the summer, all right? And you don't want to have this big heavy net on your pond all summer, right? Because it doesn't look good. So what I usually recommend is just a nice, thin, cheap net. Anything just to keep him from, getting his head in the water, okay? And a nice, thin, cheap net is something that can be easily put on or taken off, and it's not as visible. So when you are, a ways back from your pond, when you're in your house and looking out your window at your pond, you probably won't even really see it. So it's nice for that. So, netting obviously is a great choice. Now, the other thing that works pretty well is monofilament fishing line. So there's two different ways to look at this, okay? Monofilament fishing line. Maybe putting a couple stakes around your pond in different areas and running some fishing line all across the top of the pond, maybe 2 foot high off the top of the pond. Just run it all over, zigzag it, okay? Again, not the most attractive thing, but it works. All right, now another suggestion I have, if you want to do the fishing line thing, you can put it all over the top, yes, absolutely, but if you put a couple stakes all around the perimeter of your pond and then run, 2 or 3 lines all around the perimeter like a little fence, that works really well too, because what that does is basically he's going to fly down and maybe land on your patio or land on your lawn, and then come walking over to the pond. All right. As he's walking over to the pond, he's going to hit this, fishing line, okay, string around the pond. So he's not going to be able to walk up to the pond. Okay, so that really helps. Now, the next idea for you is they have sprinklers that have a motion detector on them. One particular brand is called a Scarecrow. So it's basically a sprinkler you hook up to your garden hose, and it has a stake that sticks in the ground, and it has that motion detector on it. And once you have your water turned on and everything, if the bird or you walk anywhere near the pond, that motion detector gets tripped and right, it sprays water. So that helps to deter them as well. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention to you about these birds is that many of them do stay for the winter. Now, I don't know if the birds, like, let's just say, the mid-Atlantic states fly south for the winter, or move to a warmer climate for the winter, and then the birds that are further north, like in the Northeast, will come down to the mid-Atlantic for the winter. I don't know exactly what their migration is, if they do it all. All I know is that we have herons pretty much all year round. Now, in the summertime, they're pretty easy to deter, like, with putting a net over your pond. If you put a net over your pond and the heron comes down, he's going to see that there's a net there and realize that this is not an easy meal for me. So he will look someplace else. And in the summer, there's a million places where he can get food. All right, from natural ponds and lakes to your neighbor's pond, all right, or the guy's pond down the street. But the point is, he'll come, he'll say, hey, I can't eat here. I have to find someplace else to get my food. And they go. All right. Now, that doesn't mean that you can take your net off today. All right. Because he's gone, he's going to go someplace else. Well, we don't know, right? We're not in control of that. Like I said, they are smart. They do know you have a pond and you have food there. But chances are, again, you can put your net on for a while and that'll deter them, and usually they go find someplace else. Once they have a suitable source of food someplace else, they'll likely stay there. But I'm not saying he'll never come back. So if you do remove your net, you're on your own. But chances are he'll find something else. Now, in the winter, all right, they get pretty desperate for food. All their natural lakes, streams, waterways can be frozen, covered with ice, and they can't get the food through that. But you have a nice little pond sitting over there with a little pond heater and aeration keeping a nice big hole open where he can get in there and get those fish. And they're going to be desperate, right? They got to eat, they got to survive. So they're going to be really desperate at this time. So for me, when I put nets over my clients' ponds in the fall to keep the leaves out, I leave those nets on, and we leave them on all winter. I take them off in the spring. So this way the pond is also protected in the winter, not only from any more dirt and leaves and debris getting in, but from the herons that, can get pretty desperate for food as well. All right. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think those are the primary ways of keeping these birds away from your pond, right? And netting, fishing line, the scarecrows. Now, a lot of people have said, they buy a statue or like a fake, plastic heron that they put by their pond. The idea with that is that supposedly these herons are solitary hunters. So if there is another bird in there at a pond, they typically would stay away. I don't know. I'm really not too in agreement with that. Because I've had clients that with ponds that have had 2 herons there at a time. So I don't really know if that works. Now, years ago, one of my clients, just a little quick funny story, one of my clients went out and bought this beautiful bronze statue of a heron that's, 5 foot tall. I mean, the thing was beautiful. It's probably a couple $1,000s for this bronze heron. It was beautiful, right? So he had it out next to his pond, and he had a couple little stakes in the ground by the feet, by the legs, where he kind of strapped it, tied it down, and held it in place. I do his maintenance. He cleans his filters there once a month and everything. And I went up there one month, and there's the statue. It's beautiful. And like a month or so later, I went back up there, and it's laying on the ground. So, I said, oh man, the things. So I stood it back up, I anchored it back down and got it all set up again. And the homeowner came out and he's looking, he's like, hey Chris, did you stand that heron up? I said, yeah, it was laying on the ground. He says, he goes, I wanted to leave it on the ground because, he goes, since it's been laying on the ground, the heron's never been back. So I'm thinking he thinks that he's dead, and if he comes here, he'll be dead too. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. All right. Yeah. I mean, you want to spend $2,000 on a statue and leave it laying on the ground, and whatever. But that was his theory, right? So who knows? Maybe there's a point there. And then I have another client who went out and he bought, this plastic alligator head that floats in the water. And again, it's a thing, where if the heron comes and he sees this alligator in the water, he's not going to stay, right? He's going to fly away. The only problem is we live in New Jersey and there are no alligators here. I don't know how many of these herons actually know what that alligator is. Okay? Is it really going to scare them? I don't know, It's hard to say. But like I said, it is illegal to shoot them and kill them. So, we really do our best to try to deter them. Now, I'm not going to say that, I've never heard of people shooting them before. When they go out and they spend a couple $1,000s on koi and there's a bird eating them, they get pretty upset. But, try to deter them. All right, deter them. Put that net over the pond. It really does work. I have another client that was basically talking to me the other day about this heron that comes to his pond all the time. First, he flies on the roof of his neighbor's house, and he sits there on the roof for a while. Then he flies from the roof, and he flies on the roof of their shed. From the roof of their shed, he then flies on the roof of his house. And then after that, he flies down on the roof of his shed by the pond. And he sits there on the roof of the shed, watches the fish, and when no one's around, then he goes down. So he's got his path, and he says this is what he does all the time. He goes, I see him on my neighbor's roof. I know what he's trying to do. He's staying there until I move away. Then he gets closer, then he gets closer, then he gets closer, then he's in my pond. So they are smart, all right? I have 2 parrots. Believe me, birds are really intelligent. They are really smart. They will sit and wait for hours for you to walk inside, and as soon as you go in, boom, down he comes, right? Early morning, late evening, they're out looking for food. Any time of day, though, they can come to your pond, and very patient. So even if you have a pond that's really deep, okay, a deep pond, it definitely makes it harder for them to get the fish. A deep pond with no shelves. If you have a shelf in the pond where you have aquatic plants, or he can stand on there, or he can stand on a pot for a plant and get in the water, they will. But if you have a deeper pond with no shelves, your fish have a better chance of going down deep and staying safe. However, they will sit there at your pond for a long period of time. So he may sit there for a half hour, until one of those little fish starts swimming up and coming close, and bam, he can grab them. All right, so very patient and very smart. All right. Yeah, so I think that pretty much is going to wrap it up here for you today. I just wanted to give you an insight on these herons. Now, you know, it is a very common problem. Unfortunately, you know, owning a pond, this is sometimes what we need to deal with. You know, it is part of nature, it's a part of life, but you don't want them to eat all the fish that you've just spent a lot of money on, and, you know, your pond, you know, is going to be lifeless without any fish if you allow these herons to come on in. Now, I have clients that have had ponds for years and years and years and have never had a heron. I've got clients that, you know, build it in 1 week and a few days later there's a heron. All right, it's a crapshoot basically. Also, I have a couple clients that have these ponds in like a real protected area under a tree close to the house, and they get herons. Somehow they can see that pond, they can hear that running water underneath that tree, and they find it. All right, so they're smart. All right, so thank you very much for watching. I hope the video helped you out a little bit and gave you some tips, you know, on what to do if you see a heron at your pond. You know, please, you know, be aware that they are out there. If you have, you know, a nice dog on your property, you know, you let them out, you let them run around the backyard. That can help as well, because if that heron knows there's a dog running around in the backyard, chances are, you know, he's going to stay away from that too. Yeah, these birds are really big. They are quite large. They have a big wingspan. If you have a tight area where your pond is in, maybe in a little courtyard or something, it might be difficult for him to fly in there. He has to have room to land. So usually, like I said, with that monofilament fishing line around your pond, they usually have to have room to land on your patio or on your lawn and then walk up to the pond. So in a tighter area, you're a little safer. But, you know, if the pond's out in the open, you know, not only landing, but also taking off. They need room to take off. You know, they're not just going to go whoop, up, right? They got to fly. So it's gonna, you know, tighter spaces are a little more protected. So, all right, thank you very much for watching again. Please hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and check out all the videos I have for you here. A ton of stuff. I have playlists with all different categories of, you know, different topics to look at and choose from. So hopefully, you know, you'll find something that can help you out. And check out that video on all the wildlife around your pond, what your pond can attract. Pretty cool. Thank you very much. We'll see you again soon. Take care. Have a great day. Bye.